G'day, it's Fran Davidson, psychicandenergywork.com.au, and this is number 3 video for June 2026, the monthly observations. You will, if you want to go through to the website psychicandenergywork.com.au to the monthly observations page, which you will find in the read tab on the right-hand top part of the website, however we say those things, you'll notice that for each corresponding section of that page, as in each section that corresponds with the video that you're watching, there is more information. So please get across that to the degree that you're wanting to look at this month or even last month, or even just sort of get a handle on, what's that just been about and what might come my way this month in a way that I can start to prepare or embrace it. So at this point, what we're looking at is June 2026's M.O.s. In numerology, there are 3 main numbers: the birth number, the M.O., the reality number. The birth number tells us what we're about to bump into, learn from, and hopefully choose to spiritually channel and exemplify more of as we step forward from that. The M.O. tells us how we're about to achieve those birth number states. In other words, the M.O. tells us what are the forces that may well push us into the birth number states. Hope that was clear. The reality number then tells us the spiritual outcomes, or even just the outcomes, because you've got spiritual outcomes, but you've also got egoic ones. And everything is choice. We don't always respond at our spiritual best, do we? And through that we learn still. So this June brings us a generic M.O. that manifests every time June comes around of 14.5. It also, when teamed up with 2024, it brings us a 1091. Okay, so 5 and 1091 really are, again, they're pointing to evolution within self. Yeah, and invariably what that means is perceptual evolution, how we perceive, what we think, and how we project whatever we think, believe, know, predict, all of those things, right? 1091, any number with a 0 packs power. Yeah, it may not be the loudest amount of power, but it packs more power than usual. 0 can be seen as nothing, loss, lack, yeah. But as a spiritual dynamic, 0 is also that moment when we realize that out of nothing, everything comes. Now, egoic self forgets that every time 0 comes around, yeah, especially when it's loud, because again, 0 can mean nothing's as clear as it used to be. That's not coming like it did anymore. 0 can mean lesser finances. It can mean, as in cash flow, it can mean less opportunity, less action, less breakthrough. It can also just mean, hello, I don't feel as accompanied anymore, whether that's intuitively and energetically, or whether that's even in the real world, because 109 or 1, or 1 in itself is a time when the individual can feel more alone, more isolated. And it's not because that's necessarily the case in a physical realm, the physical realm. What do I mean by that? So you could be the world's best schmoozer. Really good at socializing, usually the life of the party, yeah? Everybody, you can click with anybody and everybody and you have a wonderful time, and by the end of that evening or moment, you just feel so affirmed and, everything, like people got you, and hello, it all went down well. Then comes along a 10-1 period, or even a 109 period, which in one sense, 109 is more powerful than a 10-1, because 109 leads to 10, then down to 1. Hope that makes sense. Anyway, 1 can be a time when that world's best schmoozer is still doing what they usually do, but no one in the room really clicks with it. It's a bit like, hello, everybody else in the room is speaking a completely different language or on a completely different wavelength. It can miss. Things just miss. The engagement misses. The connection misses. And therefore 10-1 can really be a time that forces us to look at what could be called insecurities, doubts, lack of faith, but also to lack of real knowledge about life and how it is ever supportive and ever helpful. 10-1 and therefore 1091 this month could deliver those sorts of currents for you in a way that the whole purpose, or at least one of the purposes of this dynamic and of these currents, is to help us investigate where our self-knowledge is not as strong, not as sound as it could be. Because in a sense, 10-1, 1091, it looks for gaps, it looks for emptinesses, it looks for all of the flaws that mind has found in self that aren't actually there. Because, of course, there is no such thing as an incomplete self on a spiritual level. That doesn't mean we don't all have opportunities to grow and become more and step into more and all of those sorts of words. But we all come as a full kit, no matter the kit, no matter the presentation, no matter the skill sets that flow out of that or the opportunities that come to it. Yeah, we're all a full kit, and therefore none of us is flawed. But mind and model can often end us up in a place where we can affirm that on a very, very regular basis, be that about everybody else, ourselves, life, etc. Yeah? So this month is a month because we've got 14.5 and 1091. Through the dynamics of stretch your scopes, know that everything is possible, even if you choose not to partake of it. Know that therefore there is no such thing as impossible. Only mind makes it impossible, even though. But also know that this is a time that in part, because that 0 is there, it wants, again, just like the birth number, it wants introspection. In other words, it wants you taking time out. It wants you letting go of noise, busy, head stuff. Yeah? Just shelve it. Even better, don't even shelve it. You don't need to put it somewhere. You just need to let it go so that if it needs to just hang there in the air, that's perfectly fine. You're no longer driven by it. It's no longer affecting you in a way that's pulling your focus away from you, your self-knowledge, and your sense of what you're ready for now. So these dynamics are going to help people into their balance, into their spiritual wisdom, into their sense of the big picture and their ability to use it moving forward as this month unfolds and also beyond this month. So in all, the birth number dynamics are going to be very useful this month. Be aware that often numerology flags what is not going to rock up on a spiritual level. Let me say that another way. Often numerology flags, okay, so you have a 5 dynamic, and that means stretch and evolve and be flexible, be forgiving, step into possibility and potential. But also to begin with, it can speak of mayhem, erratic behavior, ungrounded behavior, pessimism. So through the what is not right, what does not feel as good as it could, what is not necessarily the best of outcome yet, through that, we get given the chance to step further, better, wiser, all over again. Travel well for this month. Feel free to go through to the 4th video now. Thank you very much for watching.